Hey guys, Miss Pariseau here. Don't worry, this was a planned absence. I believe I told you yesterday. Sorry if I forgot. I'm just easing my way back into my week. So, your job today is to continue working on the quadratic puzzles that I handed out yesterday. So if you look at the screen, it's this paper here. And I kind of threw it at you and was like, hey, go at it. And I kind of forgot some key pieces of information. So a couple of things to let you know. I will touch base with you, but if you don't feel like listening to me drone on and you want to kind of work, you can. So what I want to point out to you as if you go to page 6 in the content library, there's two places that you can find some short, sweet, to the point videos. So if you get stuck on a certain skill, you can kind of just look specifically for that. Okay. All right. So if you go to page 6, you'll see this. It's like writing quadratics given different pieces of information. So for example, and that's like really what these quadratic puzzles are. I've given you pieces of information and it's up to you to write it in standard form, factored form, and vertex form. So it's a puzzle like, okay, well, if I know this, here's this. So this kind of breaks it down. There's 6 different videos. So if you're not really sure and you're like, well, I have an x-intercept and a y-intercept, what do I do with that? Right? There's some videos here. And sometimes just watching the first one, it'll get you thinking and going, but you do have a video for each scenario there. All right. You can also find that if you go into Resources tab and you go to Unit 7 Resources. If you want more practice to get comfortable with writing from one form to the other, there's all of those first 5 just kind of going back and forth. You want to be very comfortable with those. And then you'll see those 6 videos here again as well. Okay. And then there's some graphing practice in there. But I don't think you need to worry too much about that. It's really about, can you identify the characteristics given the different forms and without actually having to do the graph. Okay, so that's what you're working on today. All right, so that's page 5 if you've lost it. There may be an extra copy with the sub if you don't have it. So you're going to be working on that. What I do want to do with you guys, and I believe 8th period I did this with you, but in case you'd like a recap, I'm going to go over number 2 and kind of touch base on like kind of the thought process and model that out for you. Okay. All right, so here's number 2. And again, we kind of want to take a look at it. Anytime we approach this, we want to go with, well, what is it that I know? What information do I have? And we have a graph there that's going to help, like a place to do the graphing that's going to help us out. So we see here that we've got the x-intercepts. I'm going to do those in pink, at 2, 0 and at 4, 0. And then we have the y-intercept at 0, 16. Well, that's like all the way up here somewhere. Okay. So with just those 3 points, let's see what we can figure out. Okay. All right. Well, if I have my 2 intercepts, I know that the line of symmetry is going to go smack dab between them. Well, the graph helps me to really visualize that, right? I can see like halfway between them. The other way is, remember, if you take a look, and I pointed this out to you guys on here. Yeah, this one. This was your blue paper. If we know our x and our y intercepts, well, that's kind of the factored form. We can just add the intercepts together and divide by 2. Okay. So that's kind of the thought process there. So essentially, we're just taking an average of the intercepts, and that's going to give us that halfway point. So I'm going to do that in green. There's my line of symmetry. So, and it's always going to be x equals, so it's going to be x equals 3. All right. So if my line of symmetry, well, I know the vertex is also going to be on the line of symmetry. So from there, I know that the x value is 3. I don't know the y value yet. So, but I can fill in what I do know. All right. The other thing is can I determine which way it's opening? Yeah, I've got 3 points. So I've got these 2 intercepts, and then I got a y-intercept all the way up here. So the only way it's going to do that is if it's opening up. So it must be opening up. Now from here, this is where we need to kind of start figuring out which form can I start with. Okay. And so if you think about it, if I know my intercepts, then the form that is probably the best one to start with is the intercept form or the factored form. So remember in factored form, we've got these two little blobs and we got y equals or f of x, okay? And so it takes this form, x minus or plus something, x minus or plus something, okay? And our intercepts are whatever, so this would be p because it's the opposite of negative p, right? So our intercepts are the opposite. So if this was 2, then that must mean that this was minus 2. So I'm going to fill in. So I'm going to do it's x minus 2, and it must be x minus 4, because if I plug in 4, that makes it a 0. If I plug in 2, that makes it a 0. But here's the main thing. A lot of people, and we didn't talk too much about it, you've got to watch out. Chances are we could have factored out a GCF. And here's how I can know that there must be something there. Because if I were to leave this as is, and I was to actually go ahead and multiply this out into standard form, I would get x squared minus 6x plus 8. And so, well, in standard form, right, my y-intercept is that constant there. But my y-intercept is supposed to be 16, and it's not. So that must mean that there's an a value there, okay? So let's take a look at, like, well, how would I find that? Well, you do exactly what we know here, okay? So we're not sure if there's an a value. We never want to assume it's a 1. We just, okay? We're going to plug in information that we know. Well, what information do I know? Well, I know, let me highlight this in blue, I know my y-intercept. I know an x value and a y value. So I can replace the x and the y so that way I can solve for a. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So y is 16. My y-intercept is 16. I still know what a is, but that's when x is 0. So 0 minus 2 is negative 2. And 0 minus 4 is negative 4. So now I can go ahead and solve, and I get 8a, and I get that a value is 2. So with that information, now I can go ahead and I can write this in factored form. I got to put that a value out in front. So I'm going to get y equals 2 times x minus 2 times x minus 4. And there I have it in factored form. Well, once I have it in factored form, everything else kind of falls into place. So I would go ahead and change this into standard form by multiplying it out. So I got 2 times x minus 2. And you want to multiply your blobbies, your binomials together. The 2, save it for the very end. So we get 2 times x squared minus 6x plus 8. You can use the box method. You can use FOIL, whatever method works. And then we're going to distribute that 2. And now we see that we have the right y-intercept, okay? And we're going to go ahead and plug that in. And from here, we could then take that standard form and change it by using complete the square, okay? And to vertex form. But we can always look for some other shortcuts, right? I know that my vertex has x is 3 because I know my line of symmetry. So instead, couldn't I just plug in to, actually, sorry, I can just find my vertex first off by plugging in the 3, right? And then if I got my vertex, then I can write it in vertex form. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we don't know what the y value is, but 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 16. We get, that's 9 times 2, that's 18, minus 36 plus 16. That's negative 18 plus 6 is negative 2. So we're going to come in here and fill in that my vertex is 3 and negative 2. Well, if that's the case, now we can go to vertex form, which is this. And plus k. Well, I know my a value, it's 2. And I know my vertex is 3, so it's x minus 3 squared. And then minus 2, because that k, it was a negative 2. My lights just went out there. But there, that's it. I didn't need to do the complete the square method. Trying to get my lights to go on. In order to get that vertex form. Could I have? Yes. but I didn't need to. I had a little cheat that I could use. So you want to look for that when you're doing, like, do I have a graph that might tell me, and I can just plug it into like kind of the basic formula. So that's what you're looking for as you're doing these puzzles. They're like, well, what do I know and what can I use to find the next step? There's not always just one definite answer, right? There's a lot of different pathways that you could take, but hopefully this gets you started. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow.